I must say I'm a bit anxious about my talk today. It's not very useful for me to be, not very usual, sorry, and useful also, to be anxious. It's because I think I will have a hard time to convey actually what I really want to say for one specific reason. This specific reason is just, it is quite new, not only for you that will listen to me, but new for me, because it's something that I've worked on for the last 4 years. And I've written 4 volumes. The first one came out in France actually a few weeks ago. That is called Chaos. And I will say a bit more in a minute what I mean by that. It's like if I was too overwhelmed to be able to be pedagogical, but I'll try to be anyway. First, I need to give you some kind of what we could call a trigger warning for different reasons, because those reasons is that I will try to show that some notions that are usually supposed to be really negative, in my opinion, are not only positive, but it is actually what we lack today. So the first one is the title of my book is Chaos. But I wrote it in Greek, I mean, not in Greek, but in the Latin letters, but for the Greek, K-H-A-O-S. You know, because in Latin, and of course afterwards in French or in English, it means something negative. It means lack of order. Nowadays when we are talking like, that's the mess. That's the opposite of cosmos. That is order in Greek, you know. But chaos in Greek doesn't mean that. It means void, but it doesn't mean disorder. So I will come back later for that. So the second word, a second notion that is supposed to be negative, that is positive in my ideas, is the word hubris. I think we are lacking hubris. Hubris is the desire to be greater than what we are, not bigger. But now we misunderstand it. We think it's the desire to get bigger. On the contrary, if we just have now left the desire to be bigger, it's because we don't have any more hubris. The desire to be greater because we don't have trust anymore in what I will come back in a while. The third word is anguish. I think we need anguish. But anguish is very different from anxiety. Actually, you are anxious when you try to repress anguish, which is, according to Lacan, the French psychoanalysis, the only feeling, anguish, that doesn't lie. That's the reason why we don't like it. And we try to repress it, and it comes back with anxiety. And we're in a society of anxiety, of negativity. And the fourth concept is tragedy versus drama. We need tragedy. Tragedy is about life and death. It's about ontology. While drama is with whom my neighbor is sleeping, and how much do I earn, and is it more than my neighbor or something like that. That is drama. Everything is becoming drama today. Even climate change is becoming a big drama, so that doesn't change anything because we're unable to make it a real tragedy in a deep sense of the term. We make it something that deals with anxiety, but not with deep anguish that could be a force, a real force. So I will try to give my speech in five bits. First, what is a human being? Second, according to me, of course. Second, what is transcendence? Third, what is modernity? Fourth, why are we are not capable of transforming the world? Because actually we are unable to be really modern, authentically modern. And fifth, what to do. So first, what is a human being? I will go very fast because I've worked for the last 20 years and I've written extensively on that, but it's just going to just say what is needed to understand what I will say after. For me, everything in the world is about desire, and especially about living beings. It's about desire. But desire is not, we don't have like the same kind of desire. You have the first layer that I call the desire to survive, and we share it with cells, with everything, you know? Even with the material world, but I will not extend that because it will have to be proven and, you know, to enter into some conception that were expressed during this conference. But let's say the first is the desire to survive, just the desire of continuity, to reproduce something, to this tension to continue. The second is the desire to live. You can see it's equal, it's the same, that the desire to survive better. I also call it objective luxury. Because it's luxury because you could live, you could survive without it. But it's objective because you can measure the quantity of energy you are actually saving. For instance, if you have a bicycle to go and get water, you could, even if you had a bicycle, you could survive. But with the bicycle, you can measure how much time you are saving. So that's the reason why I call it the desire to survive better, or the desire to live, or objective luxury. But the third, and this one we share it with mammals and many other animal species that actually build techniques and little things, you know. The third is the desire, what I call the desire to be. Philosophers pompously call it ontology, but ontology, in fact, is not something abstract. Ontology is the fact that you say what you are. You are into a narrative that is just not a narrative that you tell yourself, that a narrative that you need to share. And the narrative constricts itself, our personality constricts itself while we are actually sharing it. Yeah. So where we are sharing it, so it's a spectacle, it's a theater all the time that gives actually meaning to our life. But the desire to be comes, and I will go very fast to the comes, not from a feeling that we are stronger and bigger than other animals, but from an original feeling that actually we are weaker, that we are incomplete, that something is missing. It's somehow described by some paleoanthropologists by neoteny, the fact that we are the only mammals to be born too early, to be completely autonomous. So we need to create an entire system that helps us to survive right from the start, even a system with the fact that we have a broader solidarity system. In most mammals, the solidarity system is between father and mother and the son, etc. But for us, it became more complex with the uncle that could play the role of the father and the mother, etc. And so it becomes so broad that at the end it becomes a political system with system of solidarity and all that. But what I want to express, and it was part of my talk in Bulgaria that you actually listened to, but I will not develop this very point in detail because I don't have time to do that, is that if human beings are more complex, even on the brain point of view, than other beings, it's not because they are originally more complex. They are even more not that complex originally, even on the brain point of view. But it is more because they are complex being, frustrated by their own incompleteness, the feeling of their own incompleteness, that they become more complex afterwards. Because they wanted to overcome this frustration, this feeling of not being complete. The Greek called actually this very feeling chaos. The feeling that there is something missing, and they will call the void. But the void is there is something missing in the picture of what we see, of ourselves, or what is outside. But this feeling is actually structuring in us a specific feeling that is anguish. And this anguish is the anguish of the void. And it's unavoidable. Because the other name of this anguish of the void, that is the specificity of human beings, is actually what we call awareness or consciousness. The fact that, oh yes, we are finite, people die, and the universe is not complete, and all around it's not complete. So what is it? Does it have a meaning? The very question of the meaning is something that you can't grasp, just the fact that you name meaning. That means that actually it doesn't have a meaning right away. Because when you are hunting, it has a meaning right away, because it's performative. And what is the difference between human language and other languages? I will not, describe that in detail, because as I said, I have done it in many articles. It's just the fact that we have a part that is not performative. In a negative way, we could say, oh, that's interesting, because what is the superiority of human being? The fact that they can say bullshit. Something that is not performative at all. They can say, I love you, while in the same time they don't care. That doesn't mean anything in an animal's realm, in the way to communicate. So basically, this anguish of the void, that in my thought is equivalent to consciousness and involve responsibility, etc. What do we do with that? And it will be my second point. What is transcendence? In fact, we can't do anything about it if it is just at the stage of anguish. It's the feeling that there is something greater than what it seems in us and outside, but we can't do anything about it when it is pure anguish of, you can't name it, you can't say what it is. It's something that is an energy, but at a certain stage, at this stage, this energy is raw energy. That's the reason why I call it raw transcendence. But you can't do it. It's the analogy with the energy like oil. You can't do anything, you can't put it in your car to make your car function if you haven't refined it. Right? And so raw transcendence, this anguish, this deep anguish that is related to our awareness that we can't bear, actually, that is too heavy for us. We do something about it by refining it. And the factories that refine it, it's what I call religion. So religion, if you listen to me, are not here to express and expand the feeling of transcendence, as it is usually said, but on the contrary, to limit it, because it's too strong an energy to be used and it is too destructive. In Greece, they will call like this Dionysiac feeling that is destructive. But it's also a creative force. But in order to control it, to master it, religion, they limit it. For instance, if they build temple is making limits to transcendence. Rituals, to be able to make it something that can be in the machine, in a human machine, to do something with it, to have project and all that. So a dogma is that. A dogma doesn't express transcendence. A dogma limits transcendence. How is it called? Another way to call it, representation. You give a representation of what can't be represented. And so that works. And you're able to do something with it. You're able to work, you're able to function with this anguish that is still here, but is making some kind of a productive energy, right? So it allows people this transcendence, this feeling of transcendence. It allows people to be saints or heroes, to sacrifice themselves because they are greater than what it seems. Again, transcendence is not the dogma that we call transcendence usually, that the fact that there is life after death, it could be, it's not the point. That there will be a paradise versus I don't know what, or anything for that matter. Is the fact that there is something that goes beyond, that trends, that I don't know how you say that in English, that traverse, that, traverse it. And so these things, because it's actually a force that traverses, you can't stop it in a dogma, right? So the opposition between transcendence and immanence is a complete modern creation. It's part of a fake game that I will describe later, because of course transcendence is immanent too. It's not the point. Right. So, now, what is modernity? People say, third point, that modernity is the time where we don't believe anymore in transcendence. Or step by step, rationality will be like eliminating progressively transcendence. That's not that at all. That's on the contrary. Modernity is the contrary. It's actually a unique moment, something really unique in history of humanity, but not for what we think. It's unique because it is the first time in human history that human beings, as collectively, bet, it's like a bet, like a Pascalian bet, Paris, on what I call raw transcendence, without representations. And that's the first time that happened. The first time. And what is the name of this transcendence without representation? Is the thing that we talked about all the time. Even now, when we talk about democracy, about ethic, about our society, etc., 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 etc. This raw transcendence without representations, a priori representations, is liberty. If we don't understand that liberty is pure transcendence, we don't understand anything. And I'm afraid we don't understand anything. Because democracy is either a mystical experience, because it's the idea of free will expressing like magically, politically something, or it is nothing. And it's on its way to become nothing. And people feel it. That's the reason why they despise politicians. Because when they despise politicians, in fact, they despise themselves because they are not better. We are not better than them. We just see in them the fact that they fake the belief in liberty, so in democracy, but we despise them even more because we know that they know that we know that it's all fake, but they do it anyway. So they are even more, in this process of faking than we are. And it's what we actually feel. You read all the discourses about politics today, you will see that, this despise. They can't believe what I do. It's true, but it's also because you don't believe. It's hard to believe. So the question is, why are we unable to live with this raw transcendence? Of course, it's because we need representations to be able to make it not a raw energy, but something that is refined. But the originality of modernity, and it's actually in the very name of modernity, language speaks for itself. I don't understand why people don't understand that. It's very easy to understand. Modernity, that doesn't mean no transcendence. That means multiple modes of being. So multiple traditions, multiple ways to represent, that could express themselves freely for the first time in the same social space, protected by a society that you actually call liberal for that very reason. But if you call a society liberal for the reason that people can do whatever they want, meaning they are free as a group to believe, to trust in transcendence, but you actually don't believe in any transcendence yourself, that means that even the very word liberal doesn't mean anything anymore in a liberal society. So why were you unable to actually implement this promise, what I call, the subtitle is the betrayed promise of modernity? Why were we unable to fulfill this promise? For one reason, very simple reason. The anguish of the void, come back to what I said, is hardly bearable. So in the same time, what we declared freedom in all the declarations, the French Declaration, the American Declaration, and all that, it released, and even I would say it released, it unleashed an anguish of the void that is so strong that it really became unbearable. And what was the outcome of that? It's what I call industrialism, the fake modernity. That is the 19th century nihilism, where we invented a pure, total, dogmatic, theological determinism. When we were in a real traditional world, of course we weren't as free as in modernity, but at least even the king that was operating under the eye of God, there was some kind of an openness inside the very dogma itself. But in our society, there is no openness because determinism is a global, dogmatic theology that doesn't even have the external eye that could be God or anything. That's the reason why it fits what is called totalitarianism. Because there is not even the external eye, you don't care. The only thing that is left is technology on one side and identity on the other side. And sometimes we play identity because we are scared about technology against technology. But that's the same. At the end of the day, it's just a system that is completely closed on itself. So what did happen in this society when we had proclaimed liberty, if you follow me, but we couldn't bear it because we couldn't bear the ontological responsibility that actually comes with it? Oh, just please be kind because it's already hard for me to try to express what I have to say. But I'm almost done. I try to short everything. Now I don't know, but yeah. I don't know what I was about to say, actually. Do you remember? No? To see if you, yeah. What I wanted to say is, because we couldn't stand it, wasn't bearable, we had to replace it with something, but we couldn't come back. Like you don't believe anymore in Christmas or in Father Christmas or things like that. So we have to replace, but not by tradition. So this thing that is new is that we had to fake it. It's what I call sameness. Everywhere we need to pretend that we are free. So it becomes an ideology. We don't believe in it, but because we don't have the choice, paradoxically, to pretend we are free. We started to be in this, what I call, in English, it could be sameness society. I give you just one example because there are plenty of them, 2 examples. One of the examples is what is called quality today. It's funny because quality is actually what can't be quantified. It's just the definition of quality. So it's another definition of transcendence, what I call transcendence. But because we don't believe in quality, in direct quality, but we need to have quality, otherwise our quality of life is not even desirable. So we make quality with quantity. But we have to forget about it. We have to try to not make it obvious, So we have to make quantity that are so impressive, like when something is so impressive, that you forget the origin of the impression itself. Because it provokes something. It's what I call, and in English in my book, because it doesn't work in French really, success. It's an American thing, because I could see that when I was living in the US. When you say being successful, succès, in French, that means that, for that matter, you might earn more money and you might succeed in anything, and that's fine. But in the US, I could see that even if you earn more money, that's not the point. as long as people don't know that you actually earn more money. So the success itself is the fact that people know, but it's even more now in our society with internet. It's the number of people that actually know that you're successful, whatever the content of this success is. And it's what you find on YouTube. You don't give a damn sometimes about what is doing this guy on YouTube, but it's interesting to say it's 3 million views. So it's success. The success is in itself that. But at the end, you will ask the person that makes 3 million views, what do you think about climate change? What do you think about that? Why? Because becoming successful, you become a star, something that is visible, that is fake transcendence. And that can express itself on everything, because we forgot the very reason why it's actually a star, just a question of number. But we want to forget about it, because in all the, people say modernity or industrialism, the problem is quantification. It's not quantification. Human beings, they always quantified everything, even from Neolithic. But qualitatization is something really new. The fact that you pretend, you create fake quality with quantity that you forgot what they are in order to be able to live and to pretend that you're free or anything like that. So almost done. Please be almost done, almost done. So of course, what also I wanted to say is that the society of entertainment, where we are, it's a society of repression. The repression of what? Repression of the very feeling that you can't repress. If you have followed me, the anguish of the void. But because you repress it, it comes back. Everything that is repressed comes back. It comes back as anxiety that you actually work on with entertainment. And so you develop entertainment to try to administrate this anxiety that comes from the fact that you can't bear the anguish of the void that comes with your very consciousness and the feeling of transcendence, the true feeling of transcendence. Actually, that's the real origin of psychoanalysis. I saw that in New York City when I was living here, that the psychoanalyst that I went to see and other that my friends went to see, they were trying to help us to overcome this feeling of the void. But that's not the aim of psychoanalysis, of deep psychoanalysis. It's on the contrary. It heals only the anxiety, but not the only feeling, as Lacan says, that doesn't actually lie. Because when you feel that, when you have this feeling and you make it something that is awareness, you come back with the desire to be, the possibility of being a hero or a saint, which we actually, don't have anymore today. So, conclusion, that is the fifth. What to do? In fact, what to do is trying to overcome something. What I call the 3 layers of negativity, if we talk about ecology, for instance. If we're unable to change the world ecologically, it is just because it's out of our anxiety and not our anguish and our desire to change it. Just out of this little anxiety, this little drama that we try to do it. So at the end of the day, when there is no exhibition, nobody cares about what to do. Nobody cares. You can have politicians that discuss about everything. We have all the perfect strategy, but we don't care about strategy. It will not change anything. Human beings, they always change to something else, to positivity. If you look at ecology today, you have 3 layers of negativity. The first is what I call descriptive negativity. The ice is melting. It's actually true. The climate is changing, it's becoming more heat every year, etc., etc. And maybe we're not going to survive. It's true, all that is true. Great. First layer of negativity. The second layer of negativity, solutions. What do? Ungrow. Make ourselves smaller. But when do you, try to ask a kid, and kids are caricatures, the caricature in a positive sense of what we are, what we hope to be, to say, stop doing that. But the only reason is stop doing that, but not promising something bigger, but just become smaller. No, human beings, they want to be greater, not bigger, but greater. That's interesting with the English language, because in French we just have grand. But in the English language, it's greater transcendence, bigger industrialism, nihilistic. You fill with nihilistic money and everything. The real hubris is getting greater. And what is interesting also, it's hubris is also etymologically hybridation, the capacity to overcome your own prejudices, to not be racist, and to hybridate with other people, other culture, and even physically, which you are unable to do if you don't overcome, if you don't transcend your own prejudice. So the third layer of negativity is the worst one. It's moral negativity, moral imputation, like who is guilty? Human beings, human modern beings, the white man, the black man, the yellow man, the I don't know who. Maybe we have to erase the trace. We have to understand that what we call collapsology is not something that will actually solve the problem. Not only that, but it's self-pity. It's just such a small feeling. Oh, we are going to disappear. Yeah. And so what? If the world is greater than what we imagine, if we are greater than our morphology, but we don't believe in anything else than our own morphology, our identity on a very physical point of view, even if you pretend otherwise. So the only way to change will be to reinstore what I call the desire to be, and to accept the anguish of the void, not to repress it, but on the contrary, to expand it to the point of you are aware enough to desire changing the world positively. It's kind of an erotic proposition. You know, when you are waiting under the rain like today, just to survive, that's not as erotic than when you are waiting under the rain for the love of your life, for paradise, for something that is much, much greater. And the proposal has to be something that is much greater, to become greater than what we are, not just survive. It doesn't work. You know, when you are waiting for something that is greater, you don't care. And moreover, and it's also what is the energy of transcendence about, you become more creative. So you are ready to do something that you didn't think about before, because you are not imbued in the self-pity of collapsology. Thank you.